Hi, my name is Mike Snow, and I'm going to be talking about Twin Peaks The Return, episode 13. And I really liked most of this episode, but I want to get out of the way the stuff that I really didn't like. And it's no big surprise, it's the Dougie stuff. The same joke, again, over and over again, for 18 hours. I'm really getting flashbacks to the Endless Eight in Haruhi Suzumiya, where they just did. Is this some sort of weird Japanese like concept about the endless variations on a theme, or are they just repeating the same frickin' joke again and again and again? I'm sorry, I know he has his defenders, but this Dougie stuff has reached the end of its limit. I mean, for God's sake, being there was like 90 minutes, 2 hours maybe, and they got everything out of there. Supposedly back in the 90s, David Lynch and I think Mark Frost wanted to make some sort of sitcom about human beings with cow brains, like they were cows transformed into human beings, or their brains were surgically put into human bodies or something, and they would wander around LA just being cows. And I have a feeling that, number one, probably a good thing that that was never made. And number two, that this is probably what it would be like. You know, that's what Dougie is. He's a person with severe dementia wandering around, and people don't seem to notice. Like, that's the joke. For like 13 freaking hours. And I'm done with it. You know, nothing interesting has happened in a long time, and it's just boring the snot out of me. I can't take it anymore. Like what's going to happen to Dougie? Is he going to get shot in the head somewhere? Of course not. Of course it's not going to happen. Was it a little bit of a twist that the Bitchin brothers ended up not being evil? I guess so. But not much of a twist. That's not something that you'd find in the Twilight Zone. It's not that good. But anyway, that sequence aside, where we went back to Dougie and the insurance stuff and the Mitchum brothers, I mean, there's a moment where we have the guy that's been screwing with him again and again and again, and seemingly wants to poison him and kill Dougie at one point, turns into a blubbering, whining idiot at one point and starts sobbing away and getting so upset. Of course, we knew that Dougie wasn't going to get poisoned to death. Of course that wasn't going to happen. I was sitting there yawning. I wasn't sitting with bated breath thinking, oh no, Dougie is going to die this time, not like the other 50 times where his life was put in danger but taken away at the last second for, bum comedic effect. It just bored me. I'm sorry. I do like seeing the three girls in pink. They're really nice, but the other ones, I'm so over this. And everything seems to be working out for Dougie. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how it's going to end. Maybe it's going to be interesting, maybe not, but I don't think it could be interesting enough to justify this much stuff. But anyway, I could bitch more about that, but I'm not. I'm going to move on to the stuff that I liked in the rest of the episode. We got to see Big Ed Hurley, which was fantastic. He was one of the solid characters of the original series that I loved, that everybody loves, that he's just a wonderful, likable guy like Major Briggs. And thankfully, he's still alive. But unfortunately, he's not dating Norma. He and Norma are no longer together. We don't know what happened at the end after season 2. If they got together, they got married, they didn't, or he's still with Nadine, or what's going on. But that was one of the great things about the show. This incredible love story between Ed and Norma. I'm going to do an episode character breakdown on those two one of these days. But finding out what happened to them, it was always a beautiful moment to think back and hope in the intervening 25 years that they got together and they were still in love and still with one another. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Norma's dating some business guy who's helping her out with the double R. It's kind of sad, and it's really just we end on this very depressing sequence of Ed sitting in the cold, the October cold, just looking out into the dark of his gas station, drinking some chicken noodle soup to keep warm. And it's really unfortunate, the sad, miserable lives that a lot of people live. Although it's fairly realistic, a lot of people do live those lives, and you don't see them on film very much. So, that's interesting to one degree. I was really sad. I thought Norma and Ed were going to end up together, but I guess something, they're still friendly, which is nice. But he and James are both missing the ladies in their life who have moved on to men that, I don't really care about, I don't really know, and in at least one case is a filthy criminal who doesn't deserve him. So that's really kind of sad. It's a kind of a miserable little ending. But, we can't imagine what, maybe there were some sort of great times in the intervening quarter century, I don't know, but, as of now, they're not together, and It's pretty unfortunate. But we did get to see that Ed Hurley has repaired his relationship with Bobby Briggs. In the pilot, they actually fought with one another. I think Bobby sucker punched Ed in the back of the head and knocked him out. So, that's a really rough way to begin their career on the show. But now they're actually friends and nice now that Bobby has turned his life around. I thought that was really neat. There's also a sad little moment with Norma and her business partner who, it's great that she actually has more than one double R. She has like a franchise of Norma's double R diners sort of around the Pacific Northwest, and they're doing good business, and, she's doing good for herself. I love that. But they actually want her to change the recipes of her pies to either include inferior ingredients or make them more expensive. And it's kind of an interesting little sad note about the corporatization of the world and how crummy, mass-produced goods and foods are slowly ruining, maybe have already ruined in most places, the American way of life around food and our diet and everything like that. And it's just sort of a sad little moment. And hopefully Norma's not going to give in to that pressure. And I hope that's not what's going to happen, or she's going to try it, and everyone in town's going to be like, ugh, these pies taste terrible. And she's going to go back to it in the last episode. It's like, oh, I'm never going to do that again. So it's kind of a sad little moment there, but I hope it's going to lead to something good, and she's going to stick to her guns and not serve this inferior, bad version of pie that's, this corporatized version of pie that tastes crummy. Great pie is amazing, but mass-produced types of pie, to fit a business model usually taste horrid. That's why the homemade pie is always the best. We also get a brief sequence again with Sarah Palmer, where there's weird electrical disturbances, where she's sitting in her house, and she's living this dissolute lifestyle where she chain smokes all the time and drinks tons and tons of vodka and just stares at the TV, and she's watching a boxing match. I don't know if it's the same boxer they keep showing in the office of Dougie's boss at the insurance agency. I'd have to find that out. But she's watching this old black and white boxing match, and it keeps repeating the same thing every couple of seconds. Again, those weird electricity in the lodge creatures are related in some way, so maybe there's some sort of weird, electrical disturbance going on because of her mind. Is her mind having some sort of weird relationship with the lodges? And your mind is essentially a cauldron of electricity that's always batting about back and forth, so maybe that's affecting it in some way, and I don't know what's going on there, but it's another one of these little snippets of something that, we're going to have to wait and find out in this 18-hour movie what's happening. We also get to see this interesting sequence with Evil Cooper and Ray, who catches up with Ray, and I think what's going to happen. He's going to get killed. That's pretty obvious. Ray is with this gaggle of ridiculous criminals out in the woods, presumably the same place where Richard Horn, because he shows up, where we first see him with the cocaine dealer guy, part of this weird gang that's fucking around out there in the woods and doing God knows what. And it's kind of a cool little, setting. Imagine deep in the woods, this weird abandoned building, and all these gangsters around with machine guns. And also the hot dog guy from The Happening. Love that he shows up here. Great addition to everything. Love this guy. If you haven't seen The Happening, I highly recommend that you watch it to see the hilarious hot dog guy. One of the premier comedies of the 2000s. But anyway, he goes into this gaggle of criminals, and the gang leader there, in what I can only imagine is a extended tribute to the 1987 Sylvester Stallone action masterpiece Over the Top, engages Evil Cooper in an arm wrestling match. And as you might imagine, Evil Cooper is, of course, invincible, essentially, and he easily topples this guy after playing with him for a while, and not only smashes his arm to the ground, but crushes his face inward. He smashes his fist right into his face and just presses inward in an almost comical way. It's so ridiculous. It looks like it's something that was in a Peter Jackson horror movie from the late 80s, early 90s. It's actually kind of amusing. But then the gangsters all file out, and he's left alone there with Ray, where it's confirmed that Ray is actually working he was just a regular criminal, Ray, presumably recruited somehow by Evil Coop at some point. And he was apparently contacted by Philip Jeffries in some way and told to murder Coop. So what is Philip Jeffries doing with all of this? He is such a huge part of what's going on. He seemed like this completely outlandish, ridiculous character introduced for like literally 2 or 3 minutes in the unfortunately in the much maligned prequel, which is a great movie and I highly recommend. It's actually fantastic. The prequel Firewalk with Me, I love it. But he is actually turning out to be massively important to the plot now. Is apparently Philip Jeffries is trying to kill Cooper because, and I think I'm quoting this here, or I'm giving you the gist of this. They, meaning Jeffries, and who's the other they? Is it just Jeffries? They want something inside you, meaning you, meaning Evil Coop. So what's inside Evil Coop? I first thought it was the ring, but it's not the ring. That materializes later. Is it the gold ball? Is it all the Garmin Bozea stuck inside of him? Is the Garmin Bozea in him like blood or bile or something that gives him his strength and power, all of the pain and suffering he's afflicted across the world and across people is actually something that powers him? The pain and suffering, misery that he causes as a gangster is something that gives him power and strength. And of course, Evil Cooper kills Ray here. He shoots him in the head, he's gone, and he has all this information now, but also the coordinates. You know, everyone in the Twin Peaks world is sort of, whether they're in Twin Peaks or around it, or maybe far away in South America, like Philip Jeffries might be, or in Las Vegas, everyone is kind of gradually coming around to getting into interaction with Twin Peaks in some way, and to do with the Lodge. Except for Dougie, but hopefully he's going to be there soon. Now, some people have suggested that what's going on is they're not going to the Black Lodge this time. It's not a race for the Black Lodge and to find its power. What's going on is they're actually racing to the White Lodge, and that's a really interesting idea, because getting to the Black Lodge will give you lots of evil, dark, maleficent power, but getting to the White Lodge might be even worse, because it will demolish and stain and corrupt everything good and pure and joyful and happy in the world. And that would be just absolutely a nightmare, maybe even worse than going to the Black Lodge. I don't know which is worse, but maybe they're trying to get to the White Lodge and find the coordinates for that at the right time, although I don't know how they wouldn't know the exact place to enter the White Lodge. It would presumably be around Twin Peaks, right? I mean, these creatures are all over the world, you know? We know they're at least in South America. Well, anyway, you know, Evil Cooper is trying to find the coordinates he needs, maybe to get into the White Lodge and start doing some sort of ghastliness there. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And it could end badly. You know, the last series did. Maybe this is going to end with a dark ending too. I don't know. The most interesting sequence that we have in this episode is with Audrey. Last week's episode, episode 12, there was a lot of negative reaction to the Audrey sequence. And I can understand that because it was bizarre. It made absolutely no sense. And it was just totally out of nowhere with one of the main characters and most beloved characters of the show, Audrey Horne. And I did not quite feel that way. I liked the episode 12 quite a bit, and I was more intrigued about what was going on, but I can understand people's complaints. But this episode, I think, just buries those complaints because something really weird and really interesting is going on with Audrey and whatever is happening to her and her husband, I guess, in that strange house they're living in. Because once again, Audrey is strangely immobile, as has been pointed out. She really wants to go somewhere, but she doesn't move, and she doesn't just go out there and do it herself. Why does she need this guy to help her with it? You know, maybe there are some good common sense reasons for that, but it just seems like if she wanted to go out, she would just go out to the roadhouse and, you know, see what's happening there. But she doesn't. And that was really... It's really bizarre trying to figure out what's happening. Does she have a traumatic brain injury? Is there something mentally wrong with her? Some sort of emotional troubles with her life and everything is as it seems? Or, and this is what I've been thinking after this episode, is there some sort of strange tragedy going on? You know, is she really there? Some people speculated initially, I dismissed this, that is Audrey even real? Is she actually there? Or is she still in a coma? Or is she in one of the lodges? Is her brain somewhere else? It was said in the last episode that Richard Horne never really had a father, but they make no mention whatsoever of Audrey. And, you know, the sheriff, when talking about what Richard has done, doesn't go to his mother, who presumably would still be in town. He goes straight to her father, to Benjamin Horne. So I'm thinking more and more that maybe Audrey Horne is not even awake, that this is some sort of dreamscape going on in the mind of a comatose person or something. Well, maybe I'm going way out there on this one, but there's something bizarre and unsettling about what's going on here. And her husband also, who is oddly proportioned. He seems like maybe he's a little person, like a dwarf, but it's kind of strange to describe him. He has a large, bald head, and his arms and legs seem kind of oddly short, kind of like Michael Anderson, the man from another place. And there was in the original episode, he just seemed a little bit annoying, but in this episode, he seemed sort of malevolent in a way. There was something dark about him in this episode, especially when at one point she's complaining to him about what's going on and wanting to leave, but he says something about a story, and I might have to write you the end of your story or write you out of a story. What does that mean? Does he control her? Is he like empowered over her in some way? Could they be, it feels almost like he has, maybe that was maybe this is going to be crazy and this is way out there, but it seems like he has some sort of bizarre control and dominance over her. And she says like she doesn't feel that she's really here or that she's really her. She feels like she's someone else or in some other place. So is she trapped in the lodge somehow? Or is she still in a coma? I don't know what's happening. Is this guy kind of he gave me a really bad vibe in this one. Like he was exerting some sort of power over her. And, in the last one, it seemed like she was being obnoxious and a jerk to him and screaming at him and yelling at him. In the last episode, she also said something that I thought was just strangely worded Lynch dialogue. She said, like, yes, this person, I forget the guy's name. Yes, him. That's why I'm screwing him, and that's why I hate you, and that's why I want to find him. It almost sounds like not that she's telling him what she feels, but that she's relating the motivation of a character that she's playing, like a character that this guy wrote. I don't even understand what's going on, but it's really weird. Maybe he's like a puppet master controlling her life and writing her life because he threatens to end her story. End her life? Is he writing or controlling her story in some way? It's truly bizarre. And I can't make heads or tails of it, but it gave me a really creepy David Lynchian eeriness vibe where I don't quite know what's going on, but I know that something is wrong. She ends it with these very mysterious lines. It's like Ghostwood here. What the heck does that mean? That was really surprising. Of course there could be those sober, rational, normal things going on, but it really feels like something bizarre is happening. There's some kind of evil at work here. She wasn't just screaming at this random guy and, in this mundane house. It's like Ghostwood here, as in Ghostwood Forest. Does she know about the evil things going on in Ghostwood? When she says it's like Ghostwood here, she's saying that she's in the lodge, or her mind is in one of the lodges. Is this guy one of the creatures in there, and he's exerting some sort of malevolent force over her? Or is she just darkly mentioning this, that she knows something about the lodges and it feels evil here? I mean, what I think is that there's something nightmarish going on right there in that house, and that she's not really in the real world. She's out there in some sort of bizarre dreamscape kind of land like the lodges, and her mind and consciousness is somewhere else. That really is what it felt like. What did she mean by that? It's like Ghostwood here. Is it like the forest here, the lot? Well, whatever's going on, it's absolutely amazing. And with the Dougie stuff aside, this was still another solid episode. I really liked it. I love the characters here. And it actually ended with James Hurley singing the You and I song that he sang in Twin Peaks. It was absolutely beautiful. I loved every second of it. It was amazing. I really enjoyed that. So anyway, my name is Michael. This has been episode 13 of the Twin Peaks Return, my reaction to it. And please like this video if you liked it. I'm going to leave some links for some other videos that I made about Twin Peaks here and reacting to other videos. I'm going to be doing a reaction next week. Next Monday, it's going to be coming out for the next episode, episode 14. And please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more about Twin Peaks. Have a good day.